I did not quite follow or understand.
Not a Pax Americana.
Pakistan, since its founding in 1947, has grappled with political turmoil due to a lack of a unifying force. Corruption and infighting led to the collapse of successive governments, with provincial leaders holding substantial power. The military initiated its first coup in 1958, centralizing power for 13 years. Despite brief returns to civilian rule, military intervention occurred in 1971, 1977 to 1988, and 1999 to 2007. Even during civilian rule, the military has remained a significant power broker, influencing alliances and governments, resulting in none of the prime ministers completing a full 5-year term since independence. Separatist and extremist movements have exacerbated Pakistan's struggle to achieve political stability. Among them, the most prominent today is TTP. Formed in 2007, the TTP aimed to unite Islamist militant organizations, primarily in the federally administered tribal areas. Its origin lies in opposition to Pakistani military actions in FATA that began in 2002, after foreign militants sought refuge there, following the 2001 invasion of Afghanistan. Despite periodic military operations against the TTP, the group has thrived due to the porous Afghanistan border and support from the Taliban. The TTP is a decentralized group, and its factions often disagree on policy, which has presented a challenge to the leadership. But its primary goals include fighting Pakistan's security forces, opposing Western forces in Afghanistan, and enforcing Sharia law in its controlled areas. Moreover, changes in leadership have shifted the TTP's strategies, aligning it more closely with Al-Qaeda. Under Mullah Fazlullah's leadership, from 2013, the group intensified its attacks, growing deadlier. While most attacks concentrate in FATA and the neighboring Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, the TTP also targets major cities across the country. In June 2014, after former PM Nawaz Sharif's failed peace talks with the TTP, Pakistan launched the Zarb-e-Azb operation against these militants in North Waziristan, following a Karachi airport attack. In the aftermath, the TTP retaliated with major attacks, including the heartbreaking 2014 Army Public School massacre in Peshawar. In response to increased terrorism, Pakistan's political parties agreed on a national action plan to tackle extremism. Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif allowed the execution of convicted terrorists by lifting a death penalty ban. And by June 2016, the military declared FATA free of militants, sacrificing 500 soldiers, but eliminating 3,500 militants. And with US drone aid and internal militant conflicts, Pakistan successfully weakened the TTP from 2014 to 2018. On the other hand, Pakistani military is believed to have continued providing support to the Haqqani network, Lashkar-e-Taiba, and other proxy groups, collaborating with the TTP. This raises concerns about the Islamic State's increasing presence and influence in Pakistan. Many fighters under the Islamic State's banner in Afghanistan are believed to be former TTP militants who fled across the border. This phenomenon sparks fears of an Islamic State-inspired campaign of violence within Pakistan. So, this encapsulates the brief, yet intricate history of militant groups in Pakistan. Historically, Pakistan has only reluctantly cooperated with the United States in fighting terrorist groups. While receiving advanced weapons from the US, Pakistan paradoxically supported groups like the Afghan Taliban and the Haqqani network. On one hand, it portrayed itself as a victim of terrorism, simultaneously provided safe havens, training camps, and financial support to these groups. So obviously, this dual game had consequences. By nurturing extremist elements within its borders, Pakistan eventually found itself facing a threat from these very elements. The saying "raising snakes in your backyard" aptly describes the situation, emphasizing that those bred for a specific purpose may, in turn, pose a danger to their caretakers. So now, with the Taliban back in control of Afghanistan, Pakistan has lost leverage over these groups. The Taliban's resurgence has inspired other groups to become active again, and guess who's now in the spotlight as the prime target? Yes, you guessed it, it's none other than our favorite terrorist lover, Pakistan, whose former prime minister called Al-Qaeda chief and 9/11 mastermind, Osama bin Laden, a martyr, and said that Islamabad faced embarrassment by taking part in America's war on terror. Pakistan, the sympathizer with extremist views, never thought that terrorism would kick its back. Terrorist attacks in Pakistan peaked in 2013, averaging just under 4 attacks a day, with nearly 2,700 total fatalities. The spike in terror incidents saw the deaths of almost 500 people in the days between August 15, 2021, and August 14, 2022. Overall, the country saw a 51% rise in terrorist attacks in 1 year, since Taliban took over Afghanistan. The latest trends suggest that 2023 is worse, killing more than 700 security forces and civilians in the first 9 months of the year. The Islamabad-based Independent Center for Research and Security Studies, or CRSS, noted that the number of fatalities from terrorist attacks this year has increased by 19% compared to 2022, with the 2 Pakistani provinces bordering Afghanistan suffering 92% of all fatalities. And after launching several counter-terrorism operations, Pakistan's security establishment thought that it had gotten rid of the threat of terrorism. But on the 3rd of November 2023, showed that they were wrong. The shocking aspect of this attack was that it took place in Punjab, a region typically regarded as one of the safest territories in Pakistan. This incident has raised concerns that the Mianwali attack might mark the beginning of another wave of terrorism in Punjab. What overlooked by Pakistan? Terrorism, a grave assault on democracy and humanity, has unfortunately been overlooked by Pakistan. Instead of prioritizing the well-being of its nation, Pakistan opted to nurture extremists, with the misguided aim of gaining control over Kashmir. However, the consequences are quite the opposite. Certain provinces within Pakistan, namely Sindh, Balochistan, and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, have witnessed growing sentiments for independence. This demand is fueled by perceived repressive policies towards minorities and diverse ethnicities, coupled with concerns about extensive Chinese influence in Pakistan, and in response to increased government repression against activists and leaders. In Balochistan, a banned outfit named the Balochistan Liberation Army has been orchestrating attacks on security forces, while the military has been working for years to eliminate hideouts in the province, with no success. Terrorism is a war against democracy and a crime against humanity. The band, TTP, affiliated with the Islamic State Khorasan and Baloch separatists, are often linked to violence in Pakistan, targeting both soft and hard targets. Just 2 years ago, Pakistani authorities celebrated when the Afghan Taliban took control of Afghanistan as the US and NATO troops were leaving. Pakistan believed that by replacing the democratic government, they gained another ally against India, thinking Afghan Taliban would support them in border activities. However, this turned out to be a naive assumption. They overlooked the fact that terrorism and terrorists don't have permanent alliances. A prime example is when the US created the Taliban to counter Russia in Afghanistan, and it ended up turning against America. Similarly, when the Afghan Taliban seized control of Afghanistan, TTP militants from Pakistan became more emboldened. They established a new base in Afghanistan, and are now harboring ambitions of TTP rule in Pakistan. They joined forces with the Afghan Taliban. They've adopted similar tactics that the Afghan Taliban used before seizing power. Now, they're seeing a surge in suicide bombings, insurgent raids, and all sorts of attacks in the region. And who knows what the future holds? They might just pull off something like the Afghan Taliban did, because it's getting pretty intense. Viewing India as a perpetual enemy. You know, with all the tough stuff going on in Pakistan, be it financial crises or terror attacks, there's this one thing they never seem to forget: blaming India for everything. It's like, instead of fixing what's broken and cracked from within, they just point fingers across the border. One major flaw in Pakistan's counter-terrorism strategy is the inadequate collaboration among provinces. The federal government, intelligence bureau, and provinces operate independently, with minimal communication. Surprisingly, even the ISI and IB aren't effectively working together or sharing crucial information. So what's really important is setting up a unified civilian institution to effectively coordinate anti-terrorism efforts. But instead, the focus is on military cooperation, bringing in the ISI for a bigger picture, while overlooking the real problem, the lack of coordination among civilian agencies. And here's the kicker: when terror strikes, they conveniently blame India and RAW for everything. It's like they'd rather point fingers than fix their own coordination mess.